What's up, everyone? Today we're going to learn how to create a landing page from scratch, and we're going to do that in Photoshop. So this is a great way for you to create a mock-up, the comp, whatever you want to call it, something to give to your clients, to your boss, for someone that needs a little bit more visual explanation as to what you're going to go about creating. Now, to get a few things on the table up front right away, there's a lot of buzz right now this year and the previous few years about designing in your browser and not mocking things up in Photoshop and how cumbersome it is to use Photoshop and how archaic it is and all that other crap. I want to get this out of the way right now. This is not for those of you that want to design solely in the browser. If you want to do that, that's awesome. Watch another video though. This is not going to be for you. For those of you that understand the value of using Photoshop and understand that you can iterate a lot quicker by simply moving a group or a layer around the artboard and moving things around a lot quicker than having to go in and recode, half of your page, and understand that you can do things in a fraction of the time, this is for you. So if you want to watch this, keep that in mind that we're not going to be designing solely in the browser. But on the flip side, this is not about pixel precision. I don't recommend designing things with that in mind. If your clients are looking, let's back up. Your clients usually are not looking for pixel precision. They want to understand what's in your head. They want to understand what you're visualizing. They want to understand what they're going to be paying for. And this right here is a great way to do it. You can't convey that with a wireframe to most people. Yeah, of course, maybe you work at a studio and you have an art director that understands wireframing and you guys can, you're on the same page and you can do all that. That's awesome. For the real world, the majority of people out there, that's not how it is. If you're working for a corporation, if you're working for, if you're a freelancer, you do need to convey this to people because communication is key. This is how I do it in those cases, and that's what we're going to learn. With that said, this is not 1999. We are not going to be slicing this page up. We are not doing anything stupid like that. That's not how it works anymore. The graphics that you see on the page right now, this book, the book mock-up that you see right here, that's one graphic. The background is another graphic, and this speech bubble right here is another graphic. Those are the only three real graphics on this page. Everything else is going to be laid out in HTML and CSS and styled accordingly. We're simply using Photoshop as a communication tool to get our point across. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and walk you through where all these elements are coming from, where we're going to be headed, all that good stuff. So obviously this is our finished product. We've got a couple book mock-ups right here, like I was just explaining to you. We've got a background image right here, and we've got these speech bubbles. So those are the three things we're going to need to grab. So when you begin a design of anything, really, what I really recommend is understanding what you're going to be using it for. So if the end result is a static sales page, like in this case, this is we're not doing any kind of responsive design, anything like that. This is simply based off of a 960 grid system, fixed layout, and that's what it is. We understand what we're using it for, and we understand what we're not using it for. So with that in mind, we should pick the tools that are going to be right for this case. There's all kinds of CSS grid frameworks and systems and boilerplates, whatever you want to call it, that are out there right now. But what I'm using in this case is something called Skeleton. It's a responsive boilerplate. And it's mainly used, like they're saying right here, for smaller projects. If you don't need the bloat of a larger framework, then this is going to be perfect for you. So in this case, for our landing page, this is going to be ideal because I think it's only got like 400 lines of code. It's not that heavy. It's really easy to work with. There's not much to it. And like I was saying, it's actually based off of the 960 grid system, which is this right here. This is an older grid system that was used in the past, and it's not so much anymore because, in fact, you can even see on the top of their site now, they say if you want a responsive grid framework, check out this other one here. Not a lot of people are using it anymore because it is a fixed width. Just simply it's not responsive. It's 960, and that's all you're going to get. With skeleton, it is based. There are breakpoints in here, so there are. Let me get down to them here, and I'll show you. If you look through the code right here, you've got your media queries right here. Mobile, the phablet, tablet, desktop, and desktop HD for your HD monitors, obviously right here. So you do have some media queries that are built into it and they're ready to go. So this is ideal for a very basic boilerplate to get you up and running. So again, it's on the 960 grid system, and you can see we're using a 12 column layout right here, and that's what we're going to be using for the rest of the tutorial. So now, again, back in Photoshop, what we had here was this book mock-up graphic, and let's go ahead and take a look. And we're going to get everything basically prepared before we begin any kind of design. We want to make sure that our structure is set up. We want to make sure that that everything is in place so that we're not guessing as to where we're going to design or getting our stuff. So back over to our browser here, if you go to Graphic Burger, they've got this this nice hardcover book mock-up that you can download for free. It's actually it's a great looking mock-up if you wanted to use a book. Right here, it's layered PSD. Very easy to use, but a free resource for you if you haven't heard of it. Check it out. Now I'm using subtle patterns right here for the background. That was the header background that you saw. So this one is called Tweed, and you can get it here at subtlepatterns.com. If you haven't seen Subtle Patterns, check it out. It's awesome. It's a bunch of free backgrounds for any kind of layout that you're doing. And again, the 960 grid system, that's what we looked at just a few minutes ago, and we are going to download it because there is one really good resource in there still, and that is our grid. So going back into Photoshop here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I turn this layer on here, you're going to see those pink grid lines that are coming up. There's 12 different grids. That's why it's called a 12 column grid system, because there's 12 pink lines right here. And what we need to do to get that grid is go over to 960.gs and download it. And what that's going to do is it's going to download a folder for you here called 960 Grid System Master. Inside there, this is the whole grid system. We don't want all of that. We just simply want the template. Go into Templates, and like you can see in here, there's GIMP, Illustrator, InDesign, all kinds of different formats. But in our case, again, we're looking for Photoshop. And there's a 12 column grid, there's a 16 column grid, and a 24 column grid. Now, the skeleton grid system is only right now set up for a 12 column grid. There are other people out there that have branched this and they've made it into a 16 and a 24 column grid, but stock right out of the gate, it's going to be a 12 column grid. So that's what we're going to be using for this project. If you want to get ambitious and you want to start changing the skeleton grid system to handle a 16 or 24 column grid, go for it, awesome. But we're looking at the 12 column grid right now for this design. And the very last thing that we're going to need is the fonts for this project. And I'm using a font called Merriweather, which you can get on Google Fonts. So just do a search for it. It's called Merriweather. And if you're not familiar with the Google Fonts, what you can do is actually up here in the upper right hand corner, there's a little arrow. If you click on that, you're going to see some links here. Download the font families in your collection as a zip file. So you simply click on that, and there it goes. It's downloading the font Merriweather package to your local system. And you just simply install it like you would any other font, and you'll have it available to you in Photoshop. So right here you can see that this font face here that I'm using is Merriweather. We'll go into here and look, and up here you see Merriweather. And we've got different variations, light, italic, bold, and so on, depending on those fonts that you downloaded. All right, so now we have all of our assets that we need. So we'll go ahead and get started now. So what you want to do is, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way here, and we'll start from scratch and just start designing. Go into your your 960 grid system, your master folder. That's where we had downloaded our Photoshop template. And you want to open up the 12 column grid. And that's where we're going to start the basis of everything. So this, again, it's built on 960 pixels. So let's zoom in here a little bit and I'll show you what's going on with this grid if you're not familiar with it. All right, so each one of these pink lines is going to represent one of the columns that we have to work with. And in between each column, we've got a little bit of a gutter here. I believe it's 20 pixels roughly, I think is what it is. So there's 10 pixels on each side of each of these columns right here. And the great thing about it is it's a very flexible grid. You can really design any way that you want, just follow the grid pattern. So we'll start here, and what we want to do, we're going to switch back over to our final product, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our header, but we also need to make sure that we're keeping things organized, because one cardinal sin to Photoshop design is disorganization. If you're not labeling your layers, your folders, that kind of stuff, especially with things like this, it's going to get really messy. And it's going to be hard to change things around. In fact, it might even get harder than having to go in and change your code, and designing in the browser, if you don't stay organized and you don't watch what you're doing. So what we want to do is, if you look over here at our final product, I've got a form folder here set up. I've got a header and a body, the group also set up as well. We're going to want to do that because we want to make sure that we've got things set up in their proper place. So let's go and start off with that. So we'll create 1, 2, 3 groups, and we're going to call the first one form. The next one is body, and the last one, I already forgot what I called it. Let's look. So we have form, header, and body. Okay, so we have our header. Now, obviously we've got our top layer here, our grid system set up, and our background, which is white, and that's exactly what we want. So we're ready to go ahead and get started. So let's start on our header, and we're going to create a new layer within our header group, and we'll call this one header background. And let's just go ahead and choose our marquee tool right here, and I'm going to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. If you're not familiar with them, I'll try and remember as I'm going along to tell you what they are, but basically just hit M for your marquee tool right here. So if you're on your move tool, which is this one right here, your marquee tool is M, switches over. Upper left hand corner of the screen, I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag out an area here, and I'm looking on the left hand side. I'm going to go about 400 pixels or so to start with. So right here my ruler is showing about 400 pixels, and there we go. So I need to select my colors, and I know my background, let's look back at our finished one again here. We've got a solid background here, and we've got this textured background here. So I'm going to create 2 different layers. The first layer is going to be filled with this solid gray background, and the second layer is going to be the textured background. So we're going to go ahead and just sample this background layer and see what color I use there, just so we're not guessing. So we're going to use this hex number right here, 2F, 2F, 2F. I'm going to copy that, go back over to my finished one, and all right, so my foreground is already set at 2F. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fill that. I just hit Alt and backspace, and that's the PC shortcut to flood that entire selected area. So if we look at our header background layer, it is now filled with that color. So the next step is to create another layer, and this is going to be for our textured background. And we're going to go into our folder here, our images folder, and here's the one called Tweed. So that was, again, the one that we got from Subtle Patterns, and I downloaded that and I just dropped it into a folder here. So I'm going to just take that, I'm going to drag it up into Photoshop, and there's our file. So I don't want to modify this in any way. I just want to take it as is, because what we're going to do later on when we convert this over and we start making our HTML and our CSS, we're going to use this as this graphic as a repeating background. So we just want to leave it as is. We're not going to touch it. We're just simply going to mock it up in Photoshop. So I'm going to take it, drag it over into here, and oh, we're set as index. Okay, so what we have to do, I'm sorry, we do have to make one slight modification. We have to change the mode. So you go to image mode, and we want to switch that to RGB, because our document that we're using here is set as RGB. The other one was by default set as index, so you can't mix the two. We have to convert this one to RGB. So just do the same thing, take it, drag it back over, and drop it in place, and there we go. So I'm going to deselect the layer. We don't need that selected anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off our grid for right now so we can see what we're doing. And layer 2, we're going to leave that as is right now. We're going to just hit the V tool for our move tool, and we're going to drag that over to the left-hand side. We're going to leave a little bit of space here on the top of the header, and then we're going to do the same on the bottom. What I want to do is I want to repeat this image. I want to just simply copy it, and I want to just put a bunch of different of these squares here just to fill out this area. So a quick way to do that is make sure you have your move tool selected. Again, you hit V as the keyboard shortcut. Now you're going to make sure your layer is selected. In this case, it's still called layer 2. We're going to hold down the Alt key, and you see how that triangle, the pointer, turns to double arrows right there. What you're going to do is hold that down, you're going to click, and you're going to drag over. And what that does is it automatically duplicates that layer for you. So if you look in your layers palette over here, you see layer 2 copy, and we have 2 layers of that. So if I just simply go into layer 2 copy, I hold shift and I select layer 2. So I have layer 2 copy and layer 2 selected. Go back up to my design, I hold the Alt key down again, click and drag. Now I'm duplicating both of those layers at the same time, and it's going twice as fast. So there we go. Now I just need to do one more roughly to fill in that area. So I'm just going to select layer 2 copy to, Alt, and click and drag, and oh, we need one more. So we'll do it one more time just to fill in that little extra space. So there we go. Now we want to make this a little bit bigger. So obviously 400 pixels wasn't high enough for this background section of our header. So what we need to do is go back here to the header BG file layer, and we're going to hit Control T. And what that does is that brings up the transform option. So you see these little boxes on each corner, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all around the perimeter, you're going to see another box, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what we want to do is simply grab this middle box, drag it down. We'll go to about 500 pixels. Again, we're not doing anything precision here. This is a kind of a rough mock-up, a quick layout. So maybe, I don't know, 600. We'll start with that. And hit enter just to commit the change. Now, what we need to do is take this entire band right here, this entire line of graphics, and we're going to select every one of them. So layer 2 copy 4, all the way down to layer 2. Every one of them is selected, so you click on the top one, and you hold down your shift key and you select the last one that you want to select in that group. Every one of those are selected. Same thing, we're going to hit V to make sure we're on our move tool. We're going to hit Alt so we can duplicate all those layers, click and drag. And by the way, if you hit shift as you're dragging, what it does is it won't allow you to go left or right. It's going to be harder to go left or right. It's basically going to restrict the movement vertically for you as you're going down. So what we're doing is we're just simply dragging it down. We're going to match it up, and there it is. So go back, because now we've got a little bit too much room here. So if you look at our layer here, we've got about 50 pixels or so, and that's what we want. So so what I want to do is do the same down below. So if we look here, we're at about 450, so we want to leave it to about 500. We're just maybe 460 or so. So what we'll do is we're going to go down and select the bottom layer, Control T again for transform, click, drag up, and right about there. So hit enter, and that's it. So there's our header. Now we're done. Well, with our header anyway. So what I want to do is I want to merge all these different textured backgrounds into one layer because we're done moving those around. We don't need to do anything else with it. So let's organize our file a little bit better. So you see all these different layers that we have made up in here. We want to take all of those and merge them into one solid layer. So again, you select the first one that you want as part of your group, and you scroll down to the last one you want as part of your group, and that's what we want. So what you can do is right click on it and you can go to merge layers right here. And what that'll do is it's going to merge all of our selected layers into one layer, and there it is. So we'll call this one header, header texture. And there we go. So we went from about, I don't know, 12 different layers down to 2. And again, we're grouped in our groups here. So we're keeping everything organized. So when we go to code this, we know where everything's going to go. We know where everything is, or if our client or our boss wants us to make a change, it's simple to do. So if we want to turn off our header, boom, you just turn off the entire layer and it's gone. You don't have to go through and hunt through 50 different layer or texture layers and turn each of these off individually to get what you want. So our next step is to drop in, we had our book mock-up here, and we had a form over here. So we need to design both of those. So since we're still on the header, let's go ahead and take these books right here, and we're going to drop those into our file. So what we need to do is open up our books, and I have those placed in it's in our training folder. So I made a training folder here just for this video. So let me back out here and go to training and books. So these are already sized. I went ahead and I sized these just to save us the trouble of going through it. But when you download the file from Graphic Burger, it's going to be a fully layered, I think it's like a 200 megabyte file, something like that. So it's a huge file and high resolution. You can do whatever you want with it. But I went ahead and, like I said, saved us some time, and it's already sized for us. So I'm gonna take this book layer, or the book file. I'm gonna drop it in here to Photoshop, and I saved it as a transparent PNG file. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna take it, drag it over here to our 960, or to our file here. I gotta rename this and save it. But it's right about there. And I want this to be contained within that background, so I'm going to go ahead and what I did is I hit Control T to transform it. So I have my asset on the file, or on the artboard here. Hit Control T to transform. I'm going to grab one of the bounding boxes, hold down Shift so I constrain the proportions, and I'm going to drag upward just so we're staying within that restraint. Hit Enter to commit the change, kind of drag it down a little bit, and there we go. So we'll go into our layers panel, and we're going to rename it books. And now in the real world, you might want to, it just depends on how you want to organize your file. You may want to leave this as another layered group, and you might want to do this separate. So if you are in fact creating the book for them, you're doing the graphic design for their books and stuff, you can actually just change everything all in here if you want to do that, if you need to. My recommendation is to just keep everything separate and then do what I just did. Just go ahead and scale your images down from their own files and then drop them into your mockup file like this, instead of having to work with each of these individual graphics within this template. You don't really want to do that. It's probably not ideal. But depends on your workflow, how you want to handle it. It's definitely possible. Just create another group if you would like to do that, and you would have a fully editable mockup right within this page mockup as well. So our next step is going to be our form. So we got to look at this a little bit. We know, okay, we've got a text area here. We've got a form area down below. What we want to do is we want to align it. Because if you look at everything here, everything's nice and aligned. It's aligned. You see some alignment that's happening up above. And so to do that, what we need to do is, well, we do a couple things. We're going to turn on our grid system back on our design, and then we're going to create this group right here for our form. So let's go back in and we'll do that. So if we look at the design here, we'll go up to our form group, we'll create a new layer, and we'll call this form BG for form background, and we're going to turn on our grid. So here again, here's our grid. So this is going to be ideal for when we're actually laying this out with our CSS. This is how we're going to follow the page structure. So let's go back over to our final one and let's look. I already forgot what I did. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So we have a 5-column wide form, and we're going to do the same over here. So we're going to just go ahead on our form BG layer. We're going to hit M for our marquee tool, and we're going to click and drag 5 columns. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to go down just a little bit. Right about there is good. And we're going to go and hit D. What D is going to do is it's going to change our default colors. If you look over here, if I go back and I change this to, I don't know, red. See how it's black in the foreground, it's like this rosy red in the background. So what you do is if you want to reset this to its default, black and white, you simply hit D, and there it goes. And so what you can do is you can flood fill this again, go into your form BG layer, your selection, and if you hit Control and Backspace, what that's going to do is it's going to fill it with your background. If you hit Alt and Backspace, what that does, it fills it with your foreground. So obviously we want Control Backspace, and that's going to fill it with our background because we want white. So we're going to have a white border, and we're going to have a blue interior area of this as well. So we'll go ahead and we will simply create a new layer, and we'll go to Selection, and we will transform our selection, and we'll go ahead and just pull this in just a little bit. What I'm doing right now is I'm hitting Shift and Alt, and what that's doing is it's creating, it's transforming everything using this center point right here. So it's basically taking all of them, and it's constraining the proportions as I'm pulling in, and it's going to use this as a center point to scale everything off of. So now what I've got is an even amount on the top, on the left, on the right, and on the bottom. And we want this one to be kind of a blue color, so we're going to, I already screwed it up, so we're going to hit Enter to commit that change. We're going to then go to our foreground, and we're going to pick a blue color. Again, we can change this later. This is just a rough layout. We'll go with that right there. So this B5, F5, FF, and we're going to hit OK. We're going to hit Alt Backspace to use our foreground, and that's way too blue, but we'll change that later. And we hit Control D to deselect everything. And so what we also have in our final file here is a header up above, and we have a button. But if you also look at this white background, you see that that stroke that's on there, that border that's on there. We need to add that to our white background that we had on there. So let's go do that. We'll go back over to our working file. Let's turn off the grid for right now just so we can see what we're doing. So you see how it's kind of disappearing because we don't have that border on there. So if you just simply go to your Form BG layer, you hold down Control, click, that's going to give you the marching ants, the selection all the way around it. You go up to Edit, and you go to Stroke, and we're going to pick a color, and for right now we'll just do kind of a light gray, CD, 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 and hit OK. And our location for this one, we're going to go on the inside, and we're going to hit OK at 1 pixel. Hit Control D, that deselects it, and you'll see that nice stroke that goes all the way around that layer. Next thing we need to do is create another layer. We're going to hit M for our marquee, and this is going to be our header. So we're going to click right in here. We're going to drag it across and drop it there. We're going to want to use this color, that grayish black color here from our other header background. So I'm going to hit I for the eyedropper tool. I'm going to click to select that color. Make sure that my new layer is selected. I'm going to hit Alt Backspace to fill in that selection with the current color, and Control D to deselect. Again, look over here. If you can see, it's not perfect. There's no pixel precision happening right here. That's not what this is for. This is a rough mock-up, and we're going to go and we can refine it as much as we want later on. But don't worry about each individual pixel right now. The way that we're going to design is kind of a hybrid between Photoshop and our HTML and our CSS. You're going to kind of massage the two until you get a final product. So really don't go in here and stress over each individual pixel. That's not what this is for. For the anal retentive in the crowd, we can go ahead and do that just to kind of fix it a little bit because it's not that much trouble. And there it is. So Control or Z, and I'm holding Alt to zoom back out. There's our final. So let's add a little bit of text here on the top, and that's gonna actually, I'm sorry, let's go back and finish off our form because that's what we're currently working on, getting ahead of myself here. So we've got our header, we have some text here and here, we have some form fields and a button. So we're gonna quickly go ahead and drop in the text. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just simply gonna take this because I already have it done and I don't wanna bore you as I type everything. We're gonna select this, 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 and this, and this. And we're gonna take everything over to sorry about that. Let me go back into my landing in here, and I'm going to drag all of this over here into this file and take everything that I just moved over and drop it right in. So yeah, I kind of cheated a little bit, but basically you're going to just simply add new layers, text layers as you go along. So send me a free chapter, you know, we've got that. Oops, I forgot the button on the background, but we'll just create that really quick. Create another layer, M for marquee, and let's turn on our grid so you can see what we're working with. And let's make the button, I don't know, nice and big like that. And it was kind of a red color, so we'll go and pick that color. And Alt backspace, there's our red button, deselect. So we obviously need to drag that below the text layer so it shows up, and there we go. So we'll turn off our grid system again, and there it is. Again, not pixel precision. We're laying it out, we're mocking it up. This is gonna be used for showing our clients, our bosses, that kind of stuff. Those of you that have done it before or worked with people in general, you know everybody's going to make changes. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to change things. This is where that comes in handy because you can show them what they're working with. Let them make the changes they want to make. If they want to change that button color, awesome. That's fine. Just go in here, Control, click, and then you go and you change your color to say, I don't know, a green. And then we go in and Alt backspace and it's done. Just like that. Again, that's not a great example because in CSS it's a pretty simple process as well, but you're not opening 3 files, you're not committing changes, you're not doing anything crazy like that. It's just a simple Alt and click and done. There's nothing to it. If we want to just take this entire form and we want to, say we wanted to switch it with these books over here, right? What we can do is we can minimize our form group, and we would simply hit V, and what that's going to do is it's going to move everything into position. So say we wanted to switch this and our books. So we know we have our form here, and within our header is where our books layer is. We're gonna go in there and we're gonna move that over to the right hand side, and there you go. And that would have taken you much longer in HTML and CSS because you're gonna have to go and you're gonna have to restructure your code. Depending on how complicated your design is, that could take a very long time. In this case, it's not that complicated, but you'll see what I mean. It's just a lot simpler to go in and grab what you're looking for, move it into position, take our form and move it back into position, turn on our grid to make sure everything's roughly lined up, and there we go. We're back in business. We're ready to roll. So we'll turn off our grid. We're going to go back into our header because we need another text layer up above. We created a layer, and if you go in and hit T for your text tool, turn our grid back on because we know that now we have a 6 column wide width that we want to deal with because our design would probably look better if we didn't have everything so boxy and going into like a, you know, another 5 column up above. So let's just create a 6 column text box right up here, and there we go. So this is text up here. So obviously that's where it's going to be, the placeholder for our text is going to go. So again, I'm going to go into this landing mockup. I'm going to hit T for my text tool, Control A, Control C to copy everything. And again, I'm cheating, but I'm going to drop everything back in here, Control A and Control V, and there we go. So For those not familiar with Photoshop, there is a text tool panel up here. This is Photoshop CS5, by the way, so CS6 and other versions that are out there, your interface is going to be a little bit different, but the concepts are the same. Over here is where that panel is. You can turn it on and off on the right hand side. If you look right above your layers, see how it's turning back on. There's where our font selection is and our sizes and all our good stuff that's down here. Change everything in your character panel right here. So then the last thing that we're going to want to do is create our body elements, which are simply just text boxes down below. So we'll look back at our final product, and I'm sorry, we do have one more graphical element to add in there, and those are our speech bubbles. But on the left hand side, we have just a simple, I believe 6-column wide text area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's actually 7 columns wide. So we're going to take that from our body area here, and we're going to get all the facts, that one, there it is. Okay, so we want this layer right here. That's the one that we want. We're going to, I'll just copy the text out of this one. We'll set up the layer. Control A, Control C to copy everything. Go back to our file, and we're going to go into our body, and we're going to hit T for our text tool, and we're going to drag a selection across here. So it was 7 columns wide, just about like that. Hit Control V to paste everything in its place. And I actually had some other placeholder text in here that is showing up because I think I have some settings changed a little bit differently, but that's fine. So we'll commit our changes, and there we go. On the right hand side, we had our customer testimonials, so we'll go ahead and create another layer in here. And let's look at our reference again. So we've got 1, 2, 3 with a stroke on the bottom of each of those, and we've got a speech bubble on the right hand side. So each text layer is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 columns wide, and our speech bubble is 1 column wide. And the entire thing obviously is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So we're going to take a text area, or we're going to take our text tool, create an area that's 5 columns wide. T for our text tool, click and drag 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 columns, sorry, for our text. And this is a testimonial. Just like that. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cheat by going back over here and copying all the text so I can retain my formatting, because I spent some time just making the formatting on this a little bit. There's no need to bore you guys with that. And I'll drop it in right here. Control A, Control V to paste everything in. Now we do need our asset, which is this speech bubble here. We're going to open that in Photoshop, and we're going to take this file. We're going to simply drag it right onto the artboard and place it right about there. I'm going to use my arrow keys, arrow up, just to kind of get it into position, and that's pretty good right there. And now we need to create, let's call this speech bubbles before we forget. Speech is good enough. And what we'll do is we're going to just create a nice little separator in there. So I'll create another new layer, hit M for marquee, and just simply drag across. Roughly 1 pixel or so is what we're looking for all the way. And we'll go to edit, and actually on this one we're going to just go ahead and fill it in. So D for default for black and white, Alt backspace, and you see how it turned black like that. We actually don't want 100% black, my fault. We'll go in here and change that. We'll tone that down to, I don't know, like that, B5, 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 Alt backspace, and Control D, sorry, to deselect, and there we go. So what we need to do is I'm going to create another group within this group right here, because we're going to have multiple customer testimonials and we want to keep them organized. So we're going to call this testimonial 1, just like that. Now I'm going to drag everything that we just created into testimonial 1, minimize it, and now I have a group here in my body group, and I'm going to go ahead and hit V, Alt, and drag straight to, oh, looks like I got something else selected in there. We want to see what happened. So in the body, oh, we've got this in our testimonials group. We don't want that in there, so we want to put that back out into the body group, because that's the get the facts area. Testimonials. Right here, we're going to hit V, Alt, and drag. And that's going to duplicate that layer once, and we're going to do the same thing. Alt and drag straight down, and there we go. So now if you look at it, I think the only thing we're missing is a text box right here. So we'll go back into our header right here, create another layer. Oops, sorry, we weren't in our header. I'm hitting Control Z to undo what I just did, by the way. So we'll go into our header, and actually if you just go to your text tool and you click and drag, it'll automatically create a new layer. There's no need to create a new layer for yourself, and we'll drag it out right about there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back over to my finished product. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy all the text, Control A, Control C, and I'm going to switch back over to our working file and double click on layer 6 because it got deselected. Control V, paste everything in, and there we go. So that's about it, but basically what we're doing is we're using this grid system to lay everything out. Again, as you can see right here, it's not pixel perfect. Nothing on here really needs to be. We're going to make everything perfect once we actually convert this over to HTML and CSS. Again, the process has nothing to do with slicing things and exporting a bunch of different images, that kind of stuff. It has to do with basing everything off of this grid system. We know we have a 960 pixel wide container that we're dealing with here. We know we have a header up above. So in fact, if you look at our layers panel, the way that it's actually constructed, it is somewhat like HTML. If you look at over here, we've got our form, which you're going to have a form tag that's, you know, in your page. You're going to have a body tag, obviously, and you're going to have a header that's in there as well. So what's missing off of here is a footer. There's, you know, you can add a footer if you want to add a footer in there, but structure your Photoshop file in a similar fashion to where your HTML would be as well. That way, as you're making modifications and you're moving things and you're transferring things and you're building your HTML and your CSS, it's going to make a lot more sense. So in the next videos that I'll put out, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this into an HTML and a CSS layout. And again, I'm not slicing a thing. There's no slicing involved whatsoever. It's just these 1, 2, and 3 different elements that are going to be exported as their own PNG files, and those are going to be dropped into our design, and that's it. So nothing is being sliced. It's all HTML, all HTML and CSS. And with that, I will leave you to practice. Now, if you want to download this this PSD file that I created, just for whatever reason, if you want to mess around with it, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to go ahead and put it on my website. The download link is going to be below, so just look right below this video on YouTube and you will see the download link. And that's it. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Please leave me comments. Let me know what you'd like to learn in the future, if you are interested in slicing this up, if this is too basic for you, whatever. Just let me know. I'm interested in knowing what you want to learn. Just fill out the comments out there, send me a tweet on Twitter, email me, it doesn't matter. Somehow or another, get a hold of me and let me know. Thanks for watching.